Welcome back, loves. This is the story behind the story. I'm Sierra Melcher of Red Thread Publishing. As always, bringing you a conversation with a woman author. This week, we are joined by Kelly Lewis. She has just come off of the tail end of an epic book tour and releasing a book. Kelly is going to teach us about a launch strategy that I have been sort of social media just like stalking from the sides, and it's super cool, and I want to share her with you, her book with you. And Kelly, thank you so much for joining us. Introduce yourself, tell us what you want us to know just about you and your book, and then we'll dive in.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. My name is Kelly Lewis. I just released a book called Tell Her She Can't: Inspiring Stories of Unstoppable Women. So talking to powerful women is kind of my jam. I've been working in the women's travel industry for the past 12 years, and I run an annual conference called the Women's Travel Fest. So I've been in the women's empowerment / travel space for a long time. But with the release of this book, I shared a little bit more about my personal story, and also interviewed 35 women who have overcome all different forms of adversity, and kind of talked to them about how they got through it and how they proved all of the naysayers wrong. So Tell Her She Can't is kind of my like rallying cry. It's like the motto of my life, because I feel like I've always, had to to fight against a chorus of naysayers who told me that things were impossible, or that my dreams were silly, or that I wasn't the person to achieve them. And so it's like, well, tell me I can't do something and watch me do it.
That's my kind of lady. So, and you interviewed these women and wrote their stories. It's not a multi-author book, but it does highlight the voices of a multitude, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I
Right.
interviewed them. I am a journalist, first and foremost, before I got into travel. And so I really got the chance to put my journalist hat back on and, talk to these women and share my story with them, and then listen as they shared their story with me. So it's a very cool process, because, I also got to like take their story and write it out, and then share it back to them. And that was kind of cool too, because they were like, wow, like, so many different people have written articles about me or my business, but like this is really my story, and you captured it. And that was like such a high honor. And really, honestly, the whole project was just magical from start to finish, because you really remove all of your like ego and facade when you have these kinds of conversations of like, who told you that you can't do something, and like, tell me how you did it. And so that was really cool. And it was also like peak coronavirus time, like March 2020. So for me, it was just the best way to use my time and energy, because it's like, we can't do anything, and I really need to hear some uplifting stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it sounds like, I mean, when we write a book and when we publish a book, invariably it's going to reach people, and it's going to be a gift to readers people will never meet, may never know how what we create influences people. But definitely in the listening and the telling of these women's stories, you're giving them an incredible gift as well. So I just love
Yeah.
the all win scenario.
Totally. And like vice versa, like, I'm sharing their stories for a book, but I'm also like each time I have these conversations, like it's helping to heal me too. So it's kind of like, for me on a personal level, this project was the closing of my own kind of trauma loop, and like the reckoning of a very difficult childhood and a lot of just shit that I had to go through. And so in hearing their stories, it was like, they gave me also that gift of like, yeah, like we this also happened to me, and like we can get through it. And it was very profoundly healing on a personal level, and super exciting on a professional level, just because, I've written guidebooks before, travel guidebooks.
Yep.
So promoting and putting this book out there was such a different experience than putting out a Thailand guidebook, for example, and it was
Right.
terrifying. And there were so many nights beforehand where I was like, what am I doing? I need to delete all of my social media. I need to pull out of this. I can't I can't go through with this because it's so scary, like sharing these kinds of personal stories that you've held on to for your whole life. But then I thought about all of the 35 women in the book. And it's like, well, if like I have to do it
I
for them,
can't quit.
right?
Right. Yeah.
I
You
can't
can't
quit
quit.
because it's not just my story, it's their stories too. And so, yeah, so that was definitely what was going through my head in those moments.
And I love that you bring that up. It is so true. Aspiring authors think like, as soon as I've gotten it written and once I've figured out how to get it published, then everything's going to be breezy. But at every stage, there's a new terror barrier of like, oh my God, what am I doing? But the growth and the transformation and the epic realizations come through just moving through.
Yeah.
And I love to share that. It's so important that, even aspiring authors may not believe us. They're like, yeah, sure, I'm sure it'll be fine for me. But they'll hear it again and again and again. So when they get there, like, oh, that's right. Oh, Kelly went through it. I can do this. I'm gonna survive this,
Yeah.
right? Sierra
Yeah.
said this. I'm good. Like, it's gonna be okay. I love also the collective nature that if it were just your story, you might have struggled
Hmm.
more
Yeah.
or been more likely to like actually break down on it. But you're like, no, I'm showing up for these women. And that comes through a lot in the collective author works that we do, when and women's circles in general, is like when we know we're not alone, and when our courage serves others, when
Yeah.
our bravery and vulnerability can be a tool or a boon or advantageous to others, then we're like, okay, I will do the terrifying thing.
Yeah, totally. And it's kind of like one of my best friends gave me some very real talk when I was like on the bathroom floor, like, I can't do this. It's too scary. I can't put it out there. And she was like, basically like, buck up is what she said. And she was like, listen, if you have to share the stories of 35 other people to feel comfortable sharing a
Mhm.
bit of your own, then do it, because maybe this book is the book that leads you into the book you really need to write. So
Yep.
like that changed my whole perspective, because I was like, oh my God, I'm being such a weenie here. Like, I can I can get off the bathroom floor and put this damn book out, because it's like, it's only one of so many, right? And like, there's
Right.
always, as authors, there's always another project, there's always another book, there's
Yeah.
always another chance. And so, if I look back on the launch of this book, there were definitely like some organizational things that I did very well in terms of the launch of it that I would
Yeah.
replicate for future launches. And then, yeah, you just kind of have to like remove your personal attachment to it and be like, I'm putting this out there. And if it really sucks, then so, then so be it. But
But I've
yeah.
never, of all the authors I've ever spoken to, I've never actually heard that version. That's
Hmm.
the one we're always afraid of, but I've never actually heard one where like, I was afraid that this would happen and something sort of equally bad happened.
Yeah.
And like that, I've never heard one of those stories.
Yeah.
It's
And also
yet
it's
to
like, well,
exist.
what else? So what if it even, like, you have to,
So then write another one.
yeah,
Do it
so then
better
write
next
another one.
time.
And you
Yeah.
really have to like remove your ego, I think, from a lot of it, because it's like, if I really strip it all down to its core, like, I am a creator, and so therefore I must create. And like, the outcome of that creation really doesn't matter to me, because my soul's purpose is to create. So as long as I am doing that, then I am like fulfilling that purpose. So if
And
you just,
yeah.
yeah, just remove yourself from the, like, will it do well, will it not, will it be a bestseller, will it not, because all of that is really ego,
Yeah.
just put it out there. And so, yeah.
Well, and so let's have that be the segue, because you put it out there really, really well. And in these podcasts, I also ask authors to share a tool, something that they've done, something that they've practiced, so that the audience can have one more resource, one more idea in their tool belt, so that they don't go in blind and have no idea how to write a book or publish a book or promote a book. So you and I connected actually because I saw a post that was inviting people to your launch army.
Yep.
Talk about that and how it works, sort of the logistics as well as the idea of it, because I think it's the other side of that collective of I've written all these stories and I'm about to do this, but then there's all these people around me that are going to help lift it up and
Totally.
support it and make it successful.
Yeah, I had a really rad book army and I did it in a relatively unconventional way. So a lot of people will put together book launch teams or book launch armies. I knew that I wanted to have 100 people in that army. My goal, I had like specific goals for that. So I put out a post initially and it said, hey, I need your help. If you're interested, it's a big ask, but here's what I need from you. And I need you, it was like, I need you to join this Facebook group. I need you to commit to buying the book at full price, which is like not typical because most authors will be like, it's free for you or it's $1.99 or whatever it is.
Yeah, most
Full
of them are
price.
99 cents.
Yeah,
And
it was $9.99.
I knew I loved you when you were like, no, this is what my book costs.
Yeah.
And you're going to help me promote it, but you're going to pay for it because it's still a book and it still deserves to be bought. And I was
but like, and very kindly. So, it's like, yes. So I asked them to do these things very specifically. And I was like, all right, if you don't want to do it, then cool. I totally understand because it is a big ask. But if you do want to do it, I have some things in exchange for you. So basically it was, I need you to commit to buying the book full price. I need you to commit to reading the book before it comes out. And then I need you to commit to leaving a review on the first day or the second day of book launch. So that was it. 3 things. And in exchange, I'm going to give you, bookmarks that are signed by me. I'm going to give you, exclusive behind the scenes look at how this is done. I'm going to give you first peek at the next book. And really the people who were like, hey, I want to do this, did it not for any of the benefits. Like they did it because they wanted to support me and to support this journey and to support the book. And a lot of people who did it, I've been talking about the book, for many months on my own Facebook, just like, this is the book that's going on. I just did this awesome interview with this woman. And like, I got people really hyped about it just by sharing more. And that's also a hot tip because I think sometimes as authors, we keep it all, and even creators, we keep it to ourselves until it's ready. But if you just keep sprinkling and getting people excited because you're excited about it, it keeps you accountable to it, number one, and it gets people super pumped to take part when it's time.
Because they're invested in the journey, right? They're like, oh, I remember when she first announced it. And oh, I remember when she had that conversation with that woman. And oh, I remember when she doubted whether this was going to be a thing. And I'm now like on the emotional journey. So I'm invested energetically in the outcome. Of course I'm going to buy it, right?
Yeah. And people were like, I can't freaking wait for this book. Because I would be like, I just did an interview with this woman who walked across Antarctica and she's the first woman to ever do it. And like, she's so freaking rad. And so like, I got, I was sharing a lot. So by the time that came, and I said, my goal is to get 100 people in this to do this, knowing full well that most book launches will say like, 30% of the people who agree to do something will actually end up doing it. So I was like, all right, I feel like I love my people and my people love me. So let's go ahead and put this out. The goal is to get 100 and let's see how it goes. So most of the people were immediate, like in my circle from my own Facebook, friends and family, whatever. And then some people were like you, like they saw the call out or someone shared the call out to the right person and they joined the book army. And so for each person, basically what I did was, once the pre-sale went live, I said, hey, here's the link to pre-sale, forward me your receipt and I'll get you, in the back end of all the things. I'll send you the book in exchange. So that also is a lot more legwork than if you were to use a platform that does like, advanced reader copies or whatever, that kind of automatically sends out the book. But it helped me to say to them, hey, what's your address? What's a good way of reaching you? And then each time someone did that, I would send them a thank you note and a signed bookmark. And like, that's something so small, but it's really significant because if people are going to invest in you, I really think you have to invest in them too. So it's like a small way of sharing my gratitude, and people loved them. They were so
Yeah.
stoked. They were like, this is awesome. They're posting about it on Facebook. Like, I'm reading my friend's book. It's so great. So then organically
And
they
then
were hyping
all
up
those
my book.
people, right?
Yeah.
Then you have 100 promoters.
Yeah.
Right.
But not because I was asking them to, just because they were stoked. They liked it and it was fun and it was cool. And another thing that I did in that Facebook group was I did a lot of video, which is not normally my medium. Like I don't normally do a lot of video. And I really kind of came to video out of necessity because Facebook kept like blocking me and thinking that I was like selling e-readers when I was promoting the e-reader book, or like, they're like,
Dear.
are you listing an e-reader for sale? I'm like, no, I'm just trying to get, telling people who read on Kindle. So
Right.
I was like, screw this, I'm gonna do video, right? So I would just go on video real quick and be like, hey, this is what's going on. This is the update. This is what I need you to do. Thank you so much. And I think that's the other thing. It's like, you have to be the kind of person that's like really genuine and transparent and just be like, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Because these people are doing, like your friends and the people who support you in your book army, they're doing you a huge favor, especially when you're asking them to buy something at full price,
Yeah.
So because they bought it at full price, they were listed as verified purchases. So they were verified reviewers, which kind of helps get around Amazon's ban on friends and family.
Right. Because they have the record. Amazon actually made 35% of the profit on the book, and therefore they will post the review.
Yeah.
You ended up with more than 100
I
launch
ended up with
army.
102. And of those, 62 people actually followed through with the review part of it. But I believe almost, 90% bought the book and maybe just didn't get around to reading it. So that did two things for me. It gave me great data for how many people you really need if you want legit 100 reviews, and you need to get, I know, at least in my circle, then I need to get like 160, 170 people involved. But it also like it kicked ass from the beginning. So like my pre-sale numbers hit number one because everyone was buying as soon as pre-sale was available. And I was like, go, book
so you had
army.
a number one book, like bestseller on the
Before
day
it even came out.
Yeah.
A month before.
So for people who are like not on the other end of this process, having that ranking, having a large number of people buy your book all at once, having a high number of reviews does so many things for the analytics of your book, for the visibility of your book, and then the social proof, right? 67 reviews is like, this is a real book. My mom isn't the only one who bought it and reviewed it. Like people at large think this about this quality product, and it makes all the difference, as well as really letting people into the story. There's the community aspect and there's the analytics, and they're totally different sides of the story, but I think they're both really quality.
Totally. And the other thing that it's worth mentioning is that I did not ask them to give me a 5-star review. I just said to leave a review, and like I could have been like, you're here because you care about me or whatever, like, you want to give it 5 stars. I didn't. I was like, whatever you think about the book is totally valid. If you want to give it 3, you want to give it 4, like that's more legitimate from the eyes of the consumer than just nothing but 5 stars. So I really detached myself from the outcome. And then at first it was so scary because everyone in my book army who had bought it, I was sending them the book and I literally was under my covers like, oh my God, now it's out there and the people that I care about are reading it. And I was like, so far, nobody's told me that they like it. That means everybody hates it. Like,
it's fascinating what happens in our minds.
Right.
Oh my
and it's
God.
so silly because you're just like, okay, people have lives. Like they're doing weekend stuff with their families. They're probably not even reading the book yet, but you're just like so scared, all the time. But so those are the biggest things that I did to really reward my book army. And I just kept that Facebook group active, like updates, e-readers are available. Okay, if you want to, if you prefer it by print, now your print pre-orders are available. What do you think of, just like, what are you thinking? Like if you see any errors, tell me, because despite being proofread by 7 people, there's still errors. And so it's like, which will happen. But just, and then just kind of
Having
like, okay,
100
we're
more
launching in
eyes on
2 weeks.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
exactly.
so
We're launching
cool.
in 2 weeks. We're launching next week. Can you believe that the launch is tomorrow? And then a couple of things that surprised me about all of this is Amazon really makes it difficult for you to come out with more than like 10 reviews in your first day. Like they put
Really?
every reviewer was in Amazon jail for like 72 hours. So not jail, but like they wouldn't allow the review to go through. It was a very extensive process. So I got 13 reviews on day one. And I was like, oh man, only 13 people are doing it. And then it was like, oh no, Amazon's just really checking to make sure that these are people who have bought the book, which is why getting them to actually buy the book was kind of a game changer instead of just, buy it for free.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that was an interesting process. But it was so much fun. And then just to have people like sharing it when it came out and to say like they get a sense of kind of ownership almost because they're like, I read this book first and it's awesome and it's out today. So, go and read it. I know you're going to love it. And my book army has just been like the best ever. They're just the best people. And then when the book actually came out, I was like, hey, y'all, I need you to call this independent bookstore because they told me that they need to see demand for this book. Like 30 people called Powell's and Powell's was like, oh my God, we're working on it. But then guess what they did? The book came to Powell's and they put it as one of their hot girl summer picks. And it was like primary placement, like, yeah, chosen as an independent bookstore pick. And like ever since then, it's really just been this very organic, very cool momentum sustained by a lot of help and a lot of awesome women and, a rising tide.
And I love that one of the themes that keeps coming up in these interviews is somehow the perception that any part of this book process, the writing, the publishing, the launching, the marketing, we're supposed to do by ourselves. There's like this somehow like, if it's valid, I have to do it all by myself, or the only way to do it is if, and that's exhausting, it's overwhelming, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But we're not isolated. We're not isolated, and we can activate our social community and increase our community. You and I have a relationship now as a result of the launch.
Yeah.
Right. And so I feel like I got a book and a friend, and that we would never have met if I didn't even see your post. Someone posted in a much larger group and was like, hey, a friend of mine is doing this launch and I love supporting new authors, like female authors, and I love supporting books and I love reviewing books, and I think I review like 10 books a week because I just know how important it is to have that follow through. But that we don't have to do it alone, and just knowing what and how and who to ask so that we aren't doing it alone is fundamental. And I definitely teach a launch team, but I really, really love some of the variables that you did differently, because I think it makes a big difference. And aiming for 100, not this like I want 20 people to get my book, recognizing that there's attrition and you're not going to get everybody who says they're not going to do it may not get around to it. Life happens.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I feel like I've done a lot of very cool things in life, and I've had a lot of success in my industry. And I think honestly, a lot of that can come down to very simply like being super excited about what you're doing and sharing that like often. And I think the same parallel applies to like leaving your job to travel. People are like, how am I going to tell my boss that I want to do this? And you're like, well, easy, just get them super stoked for you. Like get them very excited for where you're going and what you're doing. And like
send them a postcard. From Bali.
It's really that simple. It's like, be excited yourself, get people who are genuinely excited for you, and then reward that excitement by like getting them invested, giving them special perks, shouting them out. And like, I think having a book army was really just one of the kind of like peaks that I got to see very clearly. Is like when you have, a core team of people who really support you and you support them in turn, like it's just kind of amazing the things that you can accomplish.
Well, and it's community, and it's like working all together. I love that you know, intentionally brought your community with you on the journey from the beginning, because that I think also gets left out when we're, if you read a book about a launch team, but if you haven't been cultivating those people
Yeah,
along the whole thing, if you're like, oh, I got a book coming out, you're like, where did that come from? Instead
yeah,
of like, oh, I know you do, I can't wait. Like that. So building that thread for people so that they're on the team before you ask them to be on the team, right?
totally.
um,
Yeah. And so I think in
um
terms of like a timeline that might be helpful for people who are
sure, yeah,
listening to this is like, first and foremost, you need to be really clear on the organization and the direction of the book and project. And for me, that
agreed.
actually took like 2 years. So I was talking about this book and then it took different forms, but it kept the same name and it kept the same vibe. But, like, and I would share that on my Facebook, but I really wasn't like pushing it until I knew it was going to be a collaborative, project featuring several different voices. And I started getting them involved and it really started to take shape. So I would say, like, do that part first, like share sparingly. But once you're really clear on the organization of the book, then you can share more frequently and more often. And then, 6 months before the book comes out, you can share even more. And I got the book launch team together, I think 6 weeks before the book came out. And for me, I was like, oh my God, that's not enough time. And then I was like, wait a minute, this is way too much time because when people are excited about something, they want to jump on it right away. And so I almost felt like I lost a little bit of momentum
Yeah.
just in having an extra like week buffer time.
And if
So,
people have read it, but then they don't get to review it for 3 more weeks, they're
yeah,
like, oh my God, like, yeah,
it's not as
the
fresh.
actual, a smaller amount of time, like
Yeah.
between the actual pre-launch. But I love,
Yeah. So
I
I would
love
do
the
it like a
timeline.
month. I would
Yeah.
probably do it like a month before the book is coming out. And, you can choose. I organized the book army before pre-launches even went live. So, you could do it. You could either do it once you have a pre-launch link, or you can do it like I did and do it like a week before and then, just kind of keep people engaged until then. But there is kind of that awkward lag time where you're like, thank you for being here. You can't do anything yet. So just sit tight, but it worked out in the end. And so I think, yeah, I think that might be helpful if you're planning kind of a similar style of launch.
I love that. And you are going to be contributing to the Anatomy of a Book launch to tell us more about that. So there's going to be a chapter in our February book, and Kelly's going to share in-depth stories, behind the scenes stuff. I love it. I'm going to make sure that your bio, how people can reach you, link to your book so that everyone can read it, because it really is, it's a triumph. And so I want people
Yeah.
to be able to read your book as well as mine your knowledge for how to have their own successful
Totally.
book launch.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
if anyone wants to reach me, I'm anywhere on the internet at Go Kelly Lewis, and the book is called Tell Her She Can't. So, really easy. I'm extremely
Perfect.
findable.
That also helps in the long range of things. Thank you so much for joining us. And we'll be back next week with another interview. Kelly, so much. Thank you for your book. Thank you for really bringing people together and letting me be part of the team. I really
Yes,
enjoyed it.
thank you
Yeah.
so much.